Thank you for joining this episode of our webinar series on best practices in eDiscovery. Today's session is focused on the blueprint for boutique firms to handle document-intensive matters during a recession. With the recession, we're seeing boutique firms gaining clients from big law. There are several dynamics that are driving this shift, but ultimately companies are trying to reduce their legal services spend. My name is Jeff Fugit. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Lexby, and I'll be the moderator for today's event. We've got a lot of information to cover, so I'll jump right in. About our webinars. Our webinars take place monthly and cover a variety of relevant eDiscovery and digital forensic topics, trends, best practices, and strategies. We've got limited seating, so be sure to register early for the sessions that are of interest to you. If you have technical issues or questions, please email us at webinars@lexby.com and we'll address those right away. Our webinars are available online at lexby.com for viewing via streaming video or downloadable as a PDF presentation or MP3 podcast. You'll find this webinar and a complete listing of other webinars at lexby.com. To be notified of future live and on-demand events, please email us at webinars@lexby.com or follow us on LinkedIn. So a little bit about us. We're based in Austin, Texas, and we've served almost 8,700 legal professionals with our cloud-based eDiscovery platform and digital forensic services. We've been doing this for more than 16 years. We have the industry's most affordable and full-featured DIY cloud-based eDiscovery platform. We have the industry's fastest eDiscovery processing and document review platform. We deliver the industry's fastest return on investment per a study that was done by G2. We are also rated as the eDiscovery company that's the easiest to do business with. We have a full forensic lab staffed with Cellebrite certified forensic investigators who perform full and targeted forensic collections. We also have a team of experienced eDiscovery specialists and expert consultants who are ASET certified and ready to assist on a moment's notice. If you'd like a demonstration of our platform, simply email us at sales@lexby.com and we'll get that scheduled. Joining us today is Gene Albert. Gene is the co-founder and CEO of Lexby. He is an experienced litigator and eDiscovery expert. He is a sought-after speaker on eDiscovery and legal topics, and he has a BA and MBA from the University of Texas and a JD from SMU. Before I turn it over to Gene, I'm going to touch on the impact of the recession on the legal services market and ask for your participation in a couple of polling questions to set the stage for his presentation. The industry publications are starting to cover the impact that the recession is having on legal services. We're seeing a significant number of layoffs in AmLaw firms and a softening of demand in certain practice areas. At the same time, we're seeing companies changing counsel and moving to boutique firms. The value proposition of the boutique firm shines even brighter during more challenging economic times. And from our perspective, being able to equip them with technology to not only handle document-intensive matters, but do so at a fraction of the cost of their big law competitors is a winning proposition in today's economic climate. Now I'm going to ask our first polling question. Is your firm seeing an increase in document-intensive cases this year? While you're answering that, I'd like to thank you for participating in our polling questions today. And our second polling question, are your clients reducing their legal spend due to the recession? All right, I'll go ahead and close that poll. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Gene Albert. Gene?
Hello, I'm Gene Albert, CEO of Lexby. This has always been a popular webinar for us, and we get a lot of requests for it. We'll talk about on the agenda here challenges for handling large and complex cases, technology and staffing to support boutique firm practice, how it works by case stage, also document review and production options in large cases. We'll go over a case study from a boutique lawyer and end with a checklist for managing document-intensive cases. A few other points before we get started on it I want to go through. One is we have a lot of material here, so I'll be moving pretty fast through it. I can also talk pretty fast as well and try to slow down, but I'm not that good at doing that. But we'll have a deck available after the webinar, and also this is recorded in video and MP3, so you can get back and review through it if there's something of interest. Secondly, for the examples, we use some screenshots from our own program, the Lexby eDiscovery platform. course, but there's a lot of similarity between overall workflow functionality among the top eDiscovery programs and platforms in the industry. So if you're using a different one, you should be able to get to something similar in one or other software that you might have access to. Third, if we don't cover anything, or if I'm not covering anything, please ask on the chat if you're looking at this live, and if you're getting it on demand or otherwise, feel free to send me or us an email, and we'll be happy to answer your questions specifically. Thanks. One thing about boutique firms is they want to be lean and mean and not have a lot of unneeded expense structure. This will often mean leaving behind the substantial and expensive technology infrastructure that the larger firms may maintain. Boutique lawyers often will not have any or a fraction of the support staff that would be in a larger firm. Boutique lawyers often don't have the in-house or access to specialized litigation and other software, and there usually be less review staff in-house or connected with a boutique firm, attorneys, paralegals, IT personnel staff to draw on when needed. Technology is in large part what has made boutique firms and practicing in smaller firms possible. The technology between the practice management, eDiscovery software, other ways of doing things allows for a lot more of technological leverage, and smaller firms and boutique firms, in taking advantage of that, can do things and handle matters and cases and management in a way that would have been very difficult to do 10 or 20 years ago before the technology was here. A large part of this is on-demand software, cloud software, over having internal software and personnel to support it within a firm that are detailed down there. Includes no upfront hardware setup costs, or not having the need of keeping on-site dedicated personnel maintaining the software done by the cloud provider. Best practices in data encryption and security, so the law firm doesn't need to worry about that. Costs can be more easily passed on to clients and recovered as damages later. It's not a capital expense. And tremendous flexibility with lawyers working from home, staff working from home, and being able to easily get in and work on cases. Similar advantages to staffing. Many boutique firms do not want to have a lot of non-billable staff, and even billable staff they want to keep and engage when needed. So we're seeing a lot more contract staffing, and this can be a combination of contract review attorneys, freelance paralegals, and eDiscovery specialists and project managers that are brought in just as needed. Next, we'll jump into eDiscovery by case stage and look at specific issues that can come up with a boutique firm handling a large document-intensive case with cloud-based software, and how to work through the various elements of the workflows on review and production. This first slide just shows an overview of what's done. There's start with a request for production received and the complaint before that, and there'd be an analyze the production request and extract case keywords, collect the ESI, which is electronically stored information, and cull it. We'll get into that a little bit more later. Then it would be processed for review to process native, TIFF, or PDF, depending on the platform. The ESI be loaded into the review platform after processing or part of processing if it's an integrated processing and review platform like LexP. Redaction would be done. PII would be identified and removed. Determine the review method. We'll talk about that later, and then do a relevancy and privilege review, encoding, and then get the documents ready for production and privilege log generation. This slide is a ESI data funnel, and this shows graphically that as we move through the eDiscovery process, we go from raw data that's been collected that's high volume but low relevance for the case, relevant importance on average. And we go through the culling, filtering, review, coding, production, and then all moving through there, we're reducing the data all the time, and that we end up with what's actually going to be evidence in depositions and motions in trial. And this will be much lower volume and much higher relevance. This next slide goes over the goals of the planning and collection stage, and custodian ID and data mapping in particular. So early on, it's important to identify the custodians, and these are persons that would be witnesses and otherwise hold data and otherwise have electronically stored information associated with them in one or more devices or repositories. We recommend mapping the ESI data sources, and I've got a slide on that in a second. At this point, you'd issue a litigation hold once the custodians have been identified, determine the collection methodology, collect the ESI, and then do quality control on the collection. And the software, eDiscovery software, can help with all this with custodian ESI tracking and searching, pivot analysis and reporting on custodians, and then integrated reporting, drill down analysis on what's been collected. This is a screenshot out of Lexby showing identification of the custodians, and you can show the relationships between the people. In complex cases, it's very helpful to go through this who, what, where exercise of how everybody's associated. And then these custodians will be then associated with the evidence as it comes in from their data repositories. Here's a similar tool we recommend, data mapping. And what data mapping does is it takes the custodians and it identifies them with their various data sources or repository. And for modern commercial litigation, one individual custodian might have many data sources. They could have email account, text message on the phone, might have a LinkedIn account. They'll have hard drives and emails on their laptop and perhaps their phone and work computer chats, just a number of different data sources. So we think it's best to go through on the front end to identify who the custodians are, tie them in with the data sources, get an estimate of how much data they have, and then you're in a better position for determining which custodians should be collected from and which ones will be identified custodians for the case. This is very good to do this for your own custodians. We believe it's good to do this for opposing custodians as well. And possibly you'll get help from this from opposing counsel, but even if not, then it's still a good idea to build this up based on doing your depositions to determine who has what data and that nothing's been missed from opposition. Next, we'll get into culling, and it's also known as ECA, sometimes early case analysis, or EDA, or early data analysis. And this is to quickly and defensively reduce the ESI that's been collected down to potentially relevant documents. And this is usually done with a process called culling, where the ESI is filtered by date, custodian, sometimes metadata factors, and also case keywords that have sometimes been negotiated, sometimes are done by an attorney on their own. And the ECA can also be used to analyze data at this point, look at reports and see if there's any collection gaps on one's own side and then also on opposition's produced data once that's been done. The eDiscovery software is very important for this. It starts the expansion, it repairs files that might have been damaged in copying or transport. There's a process called denist, where known files in software archives or software that's on a computer can be safely removed without any evidence. Deduplication, where exact duplicates based on a metadata hash are removed. There can be dynamic culling and filtering by custodian date, document type, and other metadata fields, and then reporting pivot tables. Next shows a pivot table of how much email was collected, and you can see it looks like there's a drop at the end there, that would raise a question if some other repository had been missed. So it's good to look at these sort of things and see if there's any apparent holes early in the process. Next slide talks about processing goals and software capabilities. Processing is used to make the ESI collected ready for review and in a modern review platform. And there's a number of things that go on with this. The different types of email, the attachments will be removed, things will be OCR'd. There's associations between emails for email threading. Near duplication can be identified. Searchable PDFs are made. HTML is extracted for a good viewer experience. Number of different things that are done, and then there will be a search index that will be created to make the entire case searchable. In our platform, clients can upload their own data for processing and integrated processing and review, or clients can send it in to us, and then we'll upload and process it for them. Some other software is split where the processing and the review software is different, so sometimes that's done as different steps. And in some software that needs to be done by the eDiscovery vendors rather than being forward-facing to the clients, but they're all doing basically the same thing. Next, we'll move on to the review stage, and the goal here is to be able to code documents quickly and accurately and cost-effectively, and to be able to identify your responsive privilege and attorney's eyes only ESI, do redactions, search ID and code key documents, prepare for depositions, And there'll be a number of different review methodologies that will be available. We'll talk about. The eDiscovery software will help on all this. They're set up for search, fast, accurate search, custom fields. There can be dynamic review sets can be set up for review or load balancing and quality control. And then a number of different ways that can be used with technology-assisted review that we'll talk about a little bit later. This next slide shows a search. That's really the bread and butter of any eDiscovery platform, is being able to do very, very fast search across the entire document set, highlighting of keywords, similar things as that, supporting Boolean searches, but also easier, less complex search types. One thing we do in Lexby is we have something that's called an Uber index, and what we've done is we've created an index that pulls data from multiple sources. So on the one hand, it pulls anything from a native extraction, if we have the native version of the files that came in, but also we created an image version of it, all the documents, and we do OCR on that. And these two different methodologies will get different data in, interestingly. So by combining the streams that can come out of extracted text and OCR, then one can get a more complete and robust search engine that will pick up not only documents that would pull text from OCR from images, but also things that could come out of the native version of the documents, or things like hidden sheets, speaker notes, etc. Also, if there's been translations, then those can be brought into a combined search index as well. We have a document viewer, and the importance here is there's one document record and one entity that's being coded, but there's many different versions of it that can be looked at, and we have this in a tabbed environment. The main one somebody would be working with would be the PDF version of it for review, but you could also see text. You could see previously produced versions, HTML versions. The original can be opened, hits from search, redacted versions. So it's easy to jump back and forth and see all the different versions, keep consistent coding. This is a nice tool of being able to look at native documents within the platform without needing to download them. So this is a very nice, actually it's a Chrome extension that allows one to open up Office documents, including Excels, but also PowerPoints and Word documents without actually downloading the native version of them. And see, it supports on the bottom different tabs as well. So that's a very good way of looking at reviewing Excels. Next slide, talk about PDF. Different platforms use different review versions of the document that they look at. Some will TIFF everything before they've been moved in. Some of them review in HTML. Some of them look in other image versions of them, JPEG. What we do at Lexby is we create a PDF version for review, and that's one of the tabs that was mentioned in the last slide. And we like that because they're small, they're text-based, and they don't expand the size of the hosted data as much as TIFFing or other imaging. Easy to work with and easy to get out, and that they can be tied back in and integrated with the native versions of them. And then if a TIFF is needed on production, which often is for other platforms, then the TIFFing can be done at the time of production. Redaction is important as well, and there's a couple different ways to do that. We have an integrated redaction editor that takes the PDF to be reviewed. It makes an image of it in a PDF, and this is important because it removes all the text. Then the redaction tools can be used to redact out various portions of the document. The redaction edits are burned in, and then it's re-OCR'd. We also support another process for text-based redaction using Adobe Acrobat Pro, and then all the documents to be redacted with that can be downloaded in our system, bulk redacted in Adobe Acrobat Pro using text search, and then uploading them in the redacted version in the platform. And then there are also native Excel redaction tools that are sometimes used as well. The next slide just goes over custom coding options as part of issue coding, whether it's being done with boutique law firm staff or using external managed review. Then various issue coding will be done along with various level of responsiveness and privilege review. These can be set up as here, as you can see on the right here on this slide. The next slide shows a multi-document coding and tagging. This way, many documents can be identified through search or other methodology, and then they can be coded to a field such as responsiveness, privilege, or here, lost profits in one operation. The next slide shows creation of review sets and assignment. So in larger cases, it's common to divide out the documents reviewed into various review sets and then assign those out to reviewers and track what they have done and go through quality control on that. The next different review methodologies. The important thing on this is to match the review methodology and the case. So the case size and the type and the budget will drive what's the preferable method in any given case. The simplest and the oldest is what we call linear review, which is somebody puts eyes on and codes all documents. With modern commercial cases, if they're very large, this isn't being done by law firm staff as much because there just certainly isn't time. So if it's smaller cases, this might be done, or a subset of the cases that should be linear reviewed like this will have eyes on. For larger cases, there'll be a managed review company will be contracted that will maintain contract lawyers will come in and do the linear review of the entire case if that's what's needed. The second one is a keyword search where search keywords are used to identify responsive and privilege and issue code documents out. This methodology is sometimes maligned, but I think that's overstated. If keyword search is done well and someone looks at it on an iterative basis to make sure that it's a specific search and it's not going to end up being a data dump and one works with the keywords, then you can get very good results on this and as good as predictive coding or TAR, but they'll get a little bit different results because it's a different methodology. In predictive coding or TAR, technology-assisted review, then in different methodologies, a manual review of C documents is obtained by the system, and they are identified by attorneys as being responsive or non-responsive. And then those are used to train the rest of the remaining documents and to generate both the production and then a review control set to look at the quality of it and then various reporting on the production. Pros and cons of different review methodologies. Linear's comprehensive, the most comfortable way of doing it, but it's slow and expensive and ends up being used for smaller cases or case subsets or managed review. Next slide talks about keyword searching, pros and cons. Certainly fast, reduces human error. We're familiar with it. There is a danger of it being overly or underly inclusive if care isn't used with the case with the keywords. Certainly, garbage in, garbage out. It's only as good as the keywords, and then it doesn't do issue coding or anything. So that needs to be something needs to look at the document specifically to determine that. And we'll see that's in larger cases where predictive coding isn't being used, and then for rush reviews or short timelines. Last is predictive coding, technology assisted review or TAR. It's fast. It's less expensive than linear review, but involves the senior attorneys who often aren't involved in other review methodologies. The cons are it requires opposition agreement usually, although some courts in their protocols may encourage it or even require it. There's still a lot of unfamiliarity. It's little case law on it, and there's worry that it's just kind of a black box. You don't often know what's being done with it. Although some providers like us do disclose the predictive coding algorithms, so that can be addressed as well. And this is best for larger cases where there's agreement. This next slide shows a predictive coding workflow where there's an iterative train, check results, and apply to responsive and non-responsive documents. Precision and recall is an important concept both for predictive coding and review now, and then also for keyword search as well. So perfect precision and recall would be situation number one, where the green documents are the responsive and the red documents are the non-responsive, where there's a perfect agreement of responsive and non-responsive. This is actually an idealized situation because even when they've done studies with attorney reviewers have looked at the same case and have done responsive, non-responsive determinations, they actually vary between them. So there's not really a gold standard, since even well-trained people will have differing opinions on that. But this ideal is what we're trying to approach. Number two is a situation which is high precision, low recall. So here, everything that was produced was actually responsive or non-responsive. Everything was produced was responsive, but there are a number of non-responsives that are produced as being responsive. So this is also known as false positives or overproduction or data dump, as all plaintiff lawyers are familiar with. The situation number three is low precision, high recall, and this is underproduction and false negatives. So here, nothing's been falsely produced, but a lot of responsive documents have been missed in the set. So this is an underproduction. And then number four is just junk. There's just low precision, low recall. So if you're in a situation where you think you have two or three or four where there's been underproduction or junk, then you can have experts look at a set that's been produced to you or test your own production going out to determine if you think it's within consistent bounds, and that I think courts are open to a third-party expert coming in and reviewing a subset of the documents and determining, what the levels of precision and recall were, either for defending one's own production or for attacking a bad production from opposition. Next, I want to talk a little bit about near duplicate identification technology. We think this is a really valuable and underutilized technology. Here, the text that's been created from documents, whether it's native extraction or OCR, is grouped into ones where there's approximately a 50% overall text match between the documents. And this is very helpful in a number of different things we recommended in all cases. One is finding related hot docs. You find one document that's good, find other ones that are near. This can capture inconsistent privilege coding, where one document's been marked has been found to be privileged, but a near dupe's not. That should be looked at. Accelerating responsiveness coding. Near dupe grouping is a very good way of determining large groups of documents that can be marked responsive or non-responsive, since usually near duplicates are either responsive or non-responsive. As finding versions of documents that have been edited, and then matching native and scanned versions of documents, which under the platform allows opening up two different documents and then doing a diff analysis. Next, I want to talk about AI tools. There's been a lot of news on this recently, and we and others have integrated a number of different AI tools into the eDiscovery platforms to allow for faster and more efficient review. And we would group those different ways. First would be analytics, which we've looked at, assisted review already, predictive coding, email threading, near dupe groupings. Next group would be language detection. So this technology allows non-English language to be detected into a document and identified specifically, and then also auto language translation. The machine language translation offered by different service providers has gotten much, much better. And this allows large numbers of non-English language documents to be translated into English, and then the initial coding can be done on that. And the ones that are determined to be key can be used in deposition, can be manually translated later, but that can be done at a much lower cost than having somebody do a foreign language review for some languages, or doing too many manual human translations of documents. Can get very expensive very quickly. And then next are a number of AI tools we call AI insights. And I'll go through a couple of those. Cognitive image recognition, which looks at an image, a picture, and then it's able to code out what that is into a searchable keyword. Audio transcription. This allows audio, MP3 or other audio that's come in to be text extracted, converted, and extracted. And this too is also very good quality, much better than even a few years ago. There's email sentiment analysis, determining emails that maybe should be looked at for having some sort of excited sentiment identified by the algorithm. And then there's entity or object recognition that goes through documents, and it can identify persons, places, dates, things for coding and searching. Here's an example of the image recognition that the software is able to look at a picture and pull out keywords such as pool, fence, yard, water, outdoors, building. Really powerful technology that's helpful in cases where this is important, such as construction, environmental, other things where there's just a lot of pictures in the data set. This next one is AI sentiment analysis. Here, on a number of different factors, the software goes in and is looking for something that is either a clearly discernible negative or positive attribute for the email. Normally it's the negative ones we're looking for, but it can pull up some interesting things that we wouldn't necessarily get to with keyword search. The next stage is production, and the goals there are to do it fast and maximize review time, to have flexible options, including all the industry standards, and to have proper QC and safeguards against inadvertent production of privileged documents. And this is all done in the eDiscovery software. We believe to do really fast production, one really needs to be in a scaled environment like Amazon Web Services that we are, or Microsoft Azure, that allows someone to bring up quickly a large number of servers, because this is very server intensive. We offer what we call blended production options, where natives, PDFs, or TIFFs can be produced or not produced on as needed, and then all the different popular load files are produced out with it, along with an integrated QC function. Clients here set up their own productions. They have, once they've determined all the documents, and there's a a validation to make sure things are being consistently coded within emails and such. The productions usually go pretty quickly, but if it's a large one, it can't be run while one is waiting. So there's ability to get an email notice when it's completed. And then there are different ways things can be produced. Raw natives, you'd see that only in a very small case where there hasn't actually been much production. So if somebody just were to do a review within an Outlook PST, not done very much because it's not very functional. Then different things can be produced. Usually process natives are being produced now, but sometimes that can be opposed there. But we're seeing more and more of that being done, and that's an option, and that can be linked in. PDFs will be produced, and those are nice because they're image, their color, smaller size, and then for the productions that need TIFFs, those can be added to the production as well. And next shows a load file. A load file are text database files that are used for associating emails and and passing on the metadata that has been as part of the production. Down below there on the bottom of that, you can see the actual text of a DAT file, which is one of the main metadata types. And it's not very friendly to read, so that's why the software pulls that out and fields it into metadata fields that are used as part of all the different processes in the case. This next selection is metadata fields that will often be requested, and this is a DOJ list, but they're common metadata types such as this that are being carried by us and the other eDiscovery providers. Another thing that's done as part of eDiscovery software for the boutique firms would be automatic generation of privilege log. So once a document's been marked as privilege and responsive, then it automatically goes into a privilege log, and it uses the metadata, and that's down a little bit into Excel. It can be used from there on out. There can also be custom privilege logs if something particular needs to be done, or there's particular privilege issues, and those can all be done in Excel and updated back up into the eDiscovery platform for consistent coding case. Next, talk about depots and motions. The key goal here is to organize all the case issues and facts and linking to supporting case documents and evidence. And it's a workflow tool to support the deposition preparation and then also handle rapid motion practice as well. So we do that with dynamic fact and issue timelining, reports by deponent, date range issue, transcript highlighting, and annotation of documents, and reports for motion production preparation. This next slide shows a fact and issue timeline to where beginning at the early stages of the case, once you have a complaint and answer and you start looking at your jury instructions, but then being built up all the way through the case and into the depositions would be facts and issue timelines where the deponents or custodians are identified, the documents, facts are extracted from documents and organized by issue, and then those are automatically shown in a timeline. This next slide shows transcript analysis, and this can be done both for transcripts to pull facts out of transcripts that you can see over on the right where facts are being extracted out of a transcript. There's also an annotation tool there where individual documents that you're going to be examining a witness on, you can make notes to them or draw on them so that you can have a transcript, an annotated version of it, and give an unannotated version to the examining witness. This next slide shows a fact categorization that they can be identified if they're material or contested, and this is valuable to be able to quickly go through motion practice and be able to respond to motions and for summary judgment or propoundment. Next, talk about trial and appeal. The goal here is that to maintain access to case documents that might be brought up by opposing counsel, to allow rapid timeline updating for live case testimony, and to maintain the case data and documents throughout the trial and appeal process. And it's helpful to be able to have the searchable platform at trial so you can find new documents if you need to for developments and testimony across. The timelines can be updated dynamically with new testimony that comes in. And then also documents, key documents, facts, and issues can be exported and brought into a trial director verdict or other presentation programs at trial. Next, I want to go through a short case study that was shown in Above the Law. It talked about a practicing litigator who was interviewed and talking about how cloud computing, has helped his small firm stay competitive in changing legal environment. Mentioned a number of things that technology is a great equalizer between smaller and larger firms. It puts you on a level playing field. So Sawyer mentioned that he was able to handle 2 or 3 complex litigation cases at a time without it just overrunning his practice with a good eDiscovery platform. Allowed him to review a lot of cases where many documents were being produced where before if you'd printed them, they would have filled rooms. But they can pull in there and work with it on a case-by-case basis. I mentioned, too, that needs fewer associates than he needed to in the older days because he was able to do a lot more with search and technology review and other AI capabilities. And that is levels the playing field for the firm. Next, I wanted to mention some practical takeaways from this and checklists. I think boutique firms are ascending. They're getting more and more complex cases than ever, driven by technology. The boutique lawyers want to be lean and mean. eDiscovery software is a must, ours or somebody else's for handling these document-intensive cases. And that technology should leverage and enhance your firm based on your practice goals. Checklist for things to consider. Say, identify your key custodians early. Data map your ESI. ESI orders and Rule 26 meet and confers. Use them to your advantage. We didn't talk about them in this webinar because we had so many other materials, but we've got other webinars on this, and it's really helpful to use ESI orders and protocols and the Rule 26 meet and confer wisely can help a lot on eDiscovery issues. Preserve and collect all the different types of evidence that's going to be there, and then watch out for the newer types of texting, messaging, and non-email communications. We didn't get too much into details of that here, but we've got another webinar on that as well. Request native versions of documents. I think, particularly if you're the plaintiff, there's a number of ways by not getting native versions of the documents that you can lose evidence. Defensively, reduce your data after collection using calling and other tools. Next slide shows match the review protocol for the case complexity and needs. Consider cloud-based eDiscovery review software rather than trying to do it yourself in-house. Supplement internal staff as needed with on-demand staff through your eDiscovery provider or other networks of lawyers or paralegals that can help out on the case. Use TAR and AI and predictive coding as appropriate. Continue using a managed review company if issue coding is needed on very large documents. Check the search capacity of your eDiscovery platform and make sure that it's robust enough and fast enough to do what you need to on the case. Know some key statistical concepts to be able to judge over and under production adequacy. Know how to find holes and gaps in productions using reports. Near grouping is a wonderful technology to use for privilege review, hot docs, speed responses review. Review your emails and threads. Determine how to handle foreign language documents, including auto-translation software. Consider how large productions will be delivered. There are different options. We have download links, so it can be done with FTP, but a drive can be sent, but there's timing elements on those. Keep your facts and issues timelines updated all through the case and going to trial. And then lastly, keep up with the latest technology and law. Well, I think that'll finish it up for me today, and I'll turn it back over. And again, thanks for attending, and please let us know if you have any questions or anything else you'd like to see us cover in the Lexby webinar series. Thank you.
Thanks, Gene. That was a great presentation. I'm going to briefly walk you through how Lexby helps boutique law firms address the challenges of document-intensive matters. At Lexby, we provide comprehensive remote and on-site forensic collections that are fully defensible. We utilize industry-leading tools like Cellebrite and Magnet. We handle a wide variety of device and account types, as you can see on this partial list. And we do so at a very affordable rate. And now I'd like to ask our next polling question. Do you have a forensic collection project, and would you like a complimentary consult? All right, I'll go ahead and close that poll. With Lexby's eDiscovery platform hosted at Amazon Web Services, you get on-demand capabilities that scale to address the needs of your case. With Lexby's cloud infrastructure, you can get from document ingestion to review faster and get your productions out the door faster. All of your remote or mobile connected employees can access the Lexby eDiscovery platform via web browser. It works great on Macs, PCs, iPhones, and Android devices. On this slide, I wanted to point out that Lexby is a single end-to-end eDiscovery platform. Unlike many eDiscovery providers, you don't have to move your data from one solution to another. Lexby has fully integrated processing, review, analytics, case timelining, artificial intelligence algorithms, and production capabilities. Keeping your data in an end-to-end eDiscovery platform like Lexby helps eliminate the risk of errors from moving data between platforms, as well as eliminates the cost of what's often called promoting data from one platform to the next. And I'll touch on that here in a little bit. And you can do it yourself and don't have to use expensive eDiscovery project managers. Lexby utilizes AI and machine learning algorithms for several uses that Gene touched on. This includes transcription, that's great for all of those web conferences that happened during the pandemic, language detection and translation for those cross-border matters, sentiment analysis, cognitive image recognition, entity identification, and more. These algorithms are tuned to perform these tasks and enable boutique firms to handle document-intensive cases with limited staff. The Lexby eDiscovery platform also has features like advanced email threading and auto-redaction to help streamline the review process and ensure you're protecting your client's privacy. Now I'm going to talk to you about eDiscovery pricing. The purpose of eDiscovery technology should be to improve your document review capabilities while driving efficiencies in both time and cost. Unfortunately, there are still a lot of eDiscovery providers that don't pass on the cost savings that technology delivers. We host the Lexby eDiscovery platform in the Amazon Web Services cloud. Our processing, storage, and networking capabilities are not only highly advanced, but they're also incredibly cost-effective, and we do pass the savings on to customers. Here's an example of how we compare to a Relativity reseller. In this comparison, you'll see that the Relativity reseller charges $30 per gig for data ingestion. Our highly efficient processing servers and serverless architecture enable us to offer this for free. While the concept of promotion might sound good, this is usually a cost associated with moving data from one platform to another. The Lexby eDiscovery platform is an end-to-end platform and doesn't require that you move your data. Not only does this save you $125 per gig in this case, but it also helps eliminate data handling errors and eliminates costly project management fees. We also don't charge user fees, so you can have as many users as you need at no additional cost. Relativity recently eliminated their user fees, so we'll see how that impacts the reseller community. We also have 7 different user permission levels to help keep your data secure. We don't nickel and dime you either with OCR or electronic endorsement fees per page. We also have highly advanced analytics integrated into the platform at no additional cost, and we're able to deliver savings on the hosting costs too. Here are some samples of how we help solve critical eDiscovery issues. Page Tackett at Thompson Co. needed Lexby speed to get some productions out the door to meet deadlines. Lexby is lightning fast and gets you from document ingestion to productions in record time. David Jones was concerned that he would be outgunned by his AmLaw opposition. He quickly realized that Lexby was a great equalizer and helped him build his best case that delivered a winning verdict. And with that, I'll ask our last polling question. Would you like a demo of the Lexby eDiscovery platform? While you're answering that, I'd like to thank you for attending today's session. We'll be making the following available to webinar attendees: a recorded streaming version, an MP3 podcast, as well as a PDF. Let us know if you have any questions or comments about this webinar or suggestions for future topics. This webinar is part of the Lexby eDiscovery webinar series. For notices of future live and on-demand webinars as part of the series, email us at webinars@lexby.com or follow us on LinkedIn. Also, we'd like your advice regarding our webinar series. Please complete the survey at the end of today's session. It helps us continuously improve this program and cover the digital forensic and eDiscovery topics that are most important to you. I'd like to thank Gene for presenting today, and thank you for attending. Watch your inbox for an invite to our next webinar on best practices in eDiscovery. Take care.